Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues, members of the community of practice. Welcome to another webinar of the community of practice on terrestrial animal biosecurity. Today, we have the pleasure of having a quite different webinar. This is called Driving Innovations on Biosecurity, an innovative model for apologies, a collaborative model between academia and industry. My name is Damian Tago, and I'm the Animal Health Economics and Biosecurity Global Coordinator in FAO. And today I will be animating this webinar. We will have three speakers today. We start with Ilias Chantziaras, who is the chair of Biosecurity in Animal Production at the University of Ghent, followed by Scott Killeen, Director of Research and Development at Ecolab, and Elien Clayes, Technical Support of Global Animal Health at CID LINES and Ecolab Company. Just before handing it over to our speakers, let me just remind you some housekeeping notes. The first one is that the webinar is being recorded because a lot of our colleagues, because of time difference, they are not able to join live. You can put your questions in the Q&A section. Please put it in the Q&A section instead of the chat, because then if you put them in the chat, the risk is that we will lose them. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. So without further delay, I'll hand it over to Ilias. Ilias, welcome. The floor is yours.
Welcome. Thank you for the invitation. So I will have a role a little bit, will be on and off the presentation. So I will give the floor first to Scott to introduce to the, let's say, have a first introduction, and then I will take it over from Scott and conclude in the end after Elien. So the floor is, I will share my screen and give the floor to Scott.
Thanks. So welcome to everybody. We're very happy to have this opportunity to talk to you today about the work that we're doing, trying to drive innovation in biosecurity by collaborating between industry and academia. So what we're going to talk about today, just be a little bit of an introduction about who we are as a company in Ecolab and what our collaboration is between CID LINES and the University of Ghent. And then we're going to focus on three things after that. So looking more towards the solutions that we can bring. One will be what's happening on chemical legislation and the impact that that is having in the world of biosecurity. Then what opportunities are we seeing with digital? And then how can we really maximize the output using tools that we already have? So to start off, just let me very briefly introduce Ecolab, the company I work for. We are a large multinational company with a very strong focus on sustainability. We have four pillars that we focus on, looking to make sure that there is enough water available in the world, for clean water for drinking, for use in different types of applications. Food is the area that I'm working in, where we really follow food production from the farm to the fork. So from activities that happen in the farm through to food processing plants, and then on to what happens in restaurants, in retail environments afterwards. We really track food safety all the way along the line. We have a very strong focus on climate as well, reducing CO2 output, making sure that large industries are running as efficiently as possible. And from a health point of view, we want to reduce infections in the world and have a strong focus on hand hygiene here in our healthcare division, which we have. But we're here to talk about animal health today and biosecurity. So within Ecolab, we have a business called CID LINES, and this is our animal health division. And the aim here is to focus on hygiene and using hygiene approaches to deliver biosecurity at the end of the day. So the way we want to work and our aim is to focus on using biosecurity to deliver improved productivity for farmers. It's clear if we can prevent any outbreaks from happening, we can have healthier animals, better conditions for the animals to live in, and at the end of the day, better results for the farmer. But we also want to reduce the risks by doing this. So we want to have lower safety risks for the person using our application, and also for the environment, and of course for the animals that are being present, or that are being maintained as well. At the end of all of this, our aim is to reduce the total costs for the farmer. There's no point in bringing a program to the market where farmers cannot afford to use it. So we want to be sure that the benefit the farmer is getting at the end of the day make it worthwhile for him to follow these biosecurity protocols we're developing. Because if he has a financial benefit in doing this, the chances of him following the protocols are of course much higher. So we're living in a VUCA world. If you don't know this expression, VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I think we're all faced with this every day. It feels like the world is getting faster and more chaotic every day. And there's so many topics here, you know, from climate change to the geopolitical situation we're facing. There have been new outbreaks of infectious diseases around the world. How are we dealing with that? Inflation is a big topic for farmers. How can they actually afford to follow up with the programs that people are recommending? Antibiotic resistance. There's really a lot going on, which is causing noise and frustration and stress for our industry. Now, me working for Ecolab, there's not a lot I can do about many of those topics, but there's three areas here where I feel we can really make a big impact in the world. The first one is on labor shortage. People are struggling around the world to get enough people to do the job, to have their operations running smoothly. I believe we can bring solutions to automate things, to reduce the human aspect in this, to make it run more smoothly. Legislation is making our lives more complex. How are we keeping up with that and making sure that we will still have things which are legal and compliant in years to come? And artificial intelligence, of course, this is a huge opportunity which we cannot miss out on. There's a lot more that we can do with the data that we already have. So to do all of this, we need to work together between industry and academia. This is a really difficult challenge we're looking at. If we want to have big jumps in research for the future, we have to work together. From Ecolab point of view, if we look at microefficacy, for example, so how well our products work, we follow the norms, we're up to date with the registration of what's needed. Similarly, when we have a new product developed, we're going to work on farms, check customer satisfaction, make sure it can be used by the farmers and that the system runs smoothly. But this is only one half of the equation. When we're talking about making a big jump in research and development, we have to work with universities, because a university like Ghent can give us more insight into the real life conditions away from what we see in our lab. They can provide scientific explanations for why we're seeing the effects that we see with our products in the field. And it's this joining together of the basic and applied research is what's really going to make the developments come in the future. So Elias, I'll pass back to you to explain how we're working together.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So for UGent, for University in Belgium, and CID LINES, it's a long collaboration that spans across a 20-year period that started with events, with financing partially activities for PhD students, for research, and I would say culminated in towards a biosecurity chair. And the question was posed straightforward by CID LINES. But at the time it was acquired by Ecolab, is that we want to prove that biosecurity in animal production results in better animal and human health. So, and we need to stress that is a farm to fork question that is quite ambitious. So why we need this chair? It is evident that we need to keep up. There's an ever increasing interest on biosecurity. There are many reports showing, for instance, the one from WOA that points out that if you invest $1 on preventive measures, you expect to have the societal benefit of $20. But we also need this chair because we need to produce academic input. It needs to go through a rigorous and tested and validated process so that we have a good input, and but not dry, but really using all relevant stakeholders, so using different tools. And the final ambition is we want to create awareness, but we want to create an appropriate awareness. Is not to scare the sector with facts, is not to create anything that is, let's say, extreme, but also we need to create awareness at an appropriate level. So the focus of the chair, and it was on June 2022 that the chair was launched. We have a focus of the focus was decided to be on the three main production animals, and the categories on poultry, pigs, and bovines. And at the core of, let's say, the focus, one main pillar that we decided to focus is the people behind it, and the people starting from the farm worker. And the farm worker is probably the most important, is the cornerstone of animal production, but all, not just the farm worker, but going to the farm manager and the animal health specialists, and to a meaningful extent to other actors such as transport personnel, feed specialists, and in the industry. So a second pillar focuses mainly on the farm itself and the practices and what measures are performed in the farm, all those that comprise biosecurity. A third component, the third pillar, is about the role and the importance of biosecurity in a One Health world. We said before, it's a VUCA world, it's a One Health world, and its role, and this is really important for the sustainability of agriculture. So for this, we need weapons, we need tools to use to provide answers. And we have applied research that we can focus on, we have fundamental research that we can use. But there's also qualitative research, is to take more to focus on getting, let's say, insights and getting the values and the gaps, the knowledge gaps, or the aspirations from the different stakeholders. And of course, is about incorporating One Health approach and focusing on education. And for this, there are different, let's say, key aspects that we need to focus on each one. For the activities, when focusing on the specific one activities per category, what we, let's say, want to focus on is on assessing efficacy of farm level biosecurity measures. And this is field tested, to be tested on the field, and really see what the protocols, if the protocols that we're using are really applying and correspond to the results that we want. And then, of course, on applied research is all about using technology tools, biosecurity measurement tools, risk-based tools, and technical helping devices and software. And with this, the aspiration was and is to work with only the leading institutes that provide those solutions and those tools. And other activities go about assessing the efficacy and development of disinfection protocols. So we know we want to test, and we always want to improve, and of course validate the protocols that are ongoing. For fundamental research, it is well established, and I think to all of us, we know that the challenges are increasing, are not going into, let's say, it's not going to be easier. And then we try to tackle specific challenges that are particularly relevant for the sector. And last but not least, on the fundamental research, the goal is to develop, in collaboration with the industry, compounds that are deemed safe for humans, animals, and the environment. So it's being ambitious, using the best possible products, but also that those products are effective. On a qualitative research perspective, we have we want to capture the farm personnel's attitudes toward biosecurity, because many times, and we all know it, we have good protocols, we have good science showing what the correct procedures should be, or we might have invested already, but sometimes it's the attitudes towards biosecurity. We want to improve this. And of course, not just the farm personnel, but also the animal health specialists' attitude towards biosecurity. And last but not least is to assess and familiarize with the regulatory framework. This is an ever-changing world, and we need to be close so that we do work and research that is relevant. Also, on the matter of One Health, our role is, I would say, as a lot of other research that is conducted at the moment, we want to combat the antimicrobial resistance threat, and biosecurity has been proven that it has a good role, and I would say it's a leading role to combat this threat. But not only on the microbial resistance, that is a One Health issue, but in general in One Health in a systemic way. So we want to highlight the role of biosecurity as part of the farm to fork strategy, not just in the farm. And activities related to education span all over, I would say, the stakeholders and all over the animal production, with trainings that the ambition is to make specific animal health trainings to train them, those specialists, but also provide educational material and easy to understand, but yet formal biosecurity guidelines and flowcharts. So what have we done so far? So far, we've been involved in leading projects in European projects. And this one, for instance, is a European cost project called Better that is now about to end. We managed to connect 400 and engage. It was one of the really successful network of biosecurity experts that went above 400 participants from 48 different countries, and we managed to produce quite some interesting publications and buzz around Europe on biosecurity. On Horizon Europe, we have the privilege of being involved with leading positions in Biosecure and the European Partnership of Animal Health and Welfare, where our role was to highlight biosecurity and really pinpoint and point to biosecurity being a metric and being a term that helps towards moving towards sustainable biosecurity, towards sustainable agriculture. So some of the activities that we performed are portrayed here, but the work what we've done, we worked closely with multiple stakeholders, trying to be close to academia, close to the agencies, and close to the industry and with private companies as well. And also in terms of education, our role has been well demonstrated by setting up webinar series, lectures, and promoting biosecurity and moving into guidelines. So for fundamental research activities, what we have done, we have tried to tackle and through providing publications and also writing and co-writing and designing proposals to tackle some of the project, let's say, challenges that you see. And towards the development of safer products, we have an ambitious project that was granted also from the Flemish Regional Fund of Innovation. And we managed to get a fund, and we have now a backland mandate ongoing on this, together with Ecolab. So for activities on qualitative research front, there are a lot of publications that we have resulted in. And the goal on this is we tried to influence, let's say, we tried to be there and capture all these, let's say, the attitudes towards moving towards a positive change in biosecurity. And the last, on the assessment and the familiarization with the regulatory framework, this is a not easy task. And there we managed, and with the help of Cost Better, we managed to address current status of biosecurity legislation in the European farm animal sector, with the help, of course, and the lead of many colleagues that have helped in that. And it's interesting to see that the landscape is diverse and is changing. And with this, I would like to give the floor back to Scott to discuss about the changes in chemical legislation.
Thanks. So I know you're not here to learn about all of the rules applicable to chemicals, but I think it's important just to show you very briefly the realm that we are working in, that we're trying to develop and maintain products in. So on the next slide now, we have an overview of, can we click to the next? Yes. So on this slide now, this is an overview of what's happening just in Europe. Now, of course, globally, there's a lot more going on, but what we find when we look at regulatory topics, very often some of these themes start in Europe, which is a highly regulated environment, and can be adapted then by other regions in the world. So trends we see in Europe tend to expand globally. And you can see here the range of areas where we have legislation in Europe. So from general working with chemicals to very specifically looking at biocides and disinfectant products. Sustainability is getting bigger all of the time. Discharge limitations. So farmers and industries can't just pump out whatever waste they have into local rivers. There's very strict rules around that, which are influencing how they work. And water recycling. There are many countries in the world with water scarcity. This is getting more and more every year. So we've actually brought in legislation in Europe about how do you recycle water? What quality standards do you have to achieve to be able to do that? So if we jump into the first one of those, and this is about substances of concern. So what I'm talking about here are dangerous chemicals. Now, when we mention substances of concern, these could be ingredients like something like caustic soda, which we use in a lot of products, but it's quite dangerous. And we need to be sure that when people are using our product, they think about this and use it safely. But that's quite a standard thing. We have other ingredients which are much more dangerous. When we start talking about formaldehyde, for example, which is a very high risk component, we start moving towards the area of substances of very high concern, which can be classed as carcinogenic, mutagenic, endocrine disruptors. So these are really the very, very heavy chemicals which we shouldn't be using in our products. And there's a lot of legislation moving to try and help and encourage us to avoid using extremely dangerous products. We can move on to the next one. The Biocide Product Regulation, so it's called BPR in Europe, and it's a very noble goal that this legislation has. They really want to be sure that when we say something disinfects, that it does disinfect properly, and that it's safe for the humans using it, for the animals in the area, and for the environment afterwards. But the legislation here is putting very strict controls on us. On the left-hand side, you can see in the past, we had about 70 different active ingredients we were allowed to use. 1/3 of these have been banned in the meantime. So it's making our choice of ingredients for our products more difficult. The requirements for efficacy testing are increasing rapidly, and the timelines and the costs for getting registrations done also. So we've gone from, in the past, 60,000 euros maybe to get a product registered across Europe within a few months, to now costing 500,000 up to 1 million even, and it can take minimum of, I would say, 3 years up to 5-6 years to get something registered. So the restrictions are increasing, it's making it more difficult. So anything we want to do in this area, we have to be sure that it's the right step that we're taking. And this is why working with academics is really vital for us. Another area then, sustainability drivers. This is constantly changing at the moment. Yes, it's the right thing to do, and we absolutely stand behind it, but it's very complex at the moment to understand what are the requirements, how do we follow on this in future. So with these legislations, you can see it makes it more complex for us to deliver the right cleaning and disinfection products long term. We commit to doing this, and we will stay on top of it to make sure everything's good, but there are other opportunities we can look at. And if you go to the next slide, one of these would be looking at digital technologies. So let's not just focus on the chemical, let's look at everything around it. And when we talk digital, there is so much data available that we could be using and don't always do it. So if we start looking at geographic information, weather, climate charts, etc., connecting this with Internet of Things, so lots of small sensors, we can bring this together with artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, and get some really critical insights which can help us with monitoring health, optimizing labor, spotting diseases early in the system before they turn into a huge outbreak. So with all of this data that we're getting, we should be able to make more sustainable and more correct decisions, which will have a bigger impact on the way we're working. And I have an example now to show how we can do that. So one example here is on poultry farms. What if we could analyze the data of everything that's happening on the farm to improve the way we're managing the farm, so that we can improve our bird weight and growth, so that we can manage our water consumption better, so that we can pay better attention to what's happening in the environment that our animals are living in. So next slide. We can do this. Here's an example of a system that we have. You can see there are many parts of a typical barn where we can gather data, which is going to be really interesting and critical for us in figuring out what is vital for our birds to grow healthily and rapidly. So we can look at the amount of water being used and at what time is the water being used. We can look at the feed rates. We can pay attention to the air in the barn. So what's the humidity? What's the temperature? Do we have gases in there which are going to negatively affect the health of the birds? And if we can combine all of this data into the right AI model, which is what we're working on, we can actually predict better when the birds will reach the target weight, that we have better homogeneity in the weight of the birds. We can prevent diseases spreading rapidly, because if we see something happening, we can jump on it straight away and take the corrective actions to get us back on track for what we're looking for. And at the end of the day, this all brings a financial benefit for the farmer. And of course, it's better conditions for the animals to be living in. Another area where we can use digital technologies effectively is in removing the labor aspect. So I mentioned having enough people to do the work is difficult. If we can reduce the number of people needed, we can have a more reliable biosecurity system. One of these areas is in pest control. Pest control typically takes a lot of manual labor, checking regularly, looking to see if you have a problem. We can automate this. Here we have some examples of some bait stations, which will send a signal into the cloud if a rat, for example, comes and starts eating the bait. This means then that the pest specialist, he gets a notification, and he knows before he comes to the site, or first of all, he knows he needs to visit a site, and secondly, he knows in advance, where has this happened? How big was this incident? Was it probably a single rat? Do we have suddenly lots of them there? So he's prepared when he comes. And that makes his work more efficient. And he can look back and try in time over this data and start looking for trends. And with this analysis of the trends, he can actually be much more effective in identifying structural improvements needed to prevent this happening in future. So the outcome of all of this is we can deliver 24/7 monitoring for pests. This results in a much faster resolution for the farmer, and very importantly, 20% less high-risk situations. Because we're able to stop a pest infestation earlier in the process, we can keep the risk low in the system. So the idea with digital is taking the human concept or the human aspect out as much as you can and automating things, so you're going to see these things that need to be acted on and you can focus on doing the right thing. And now I'll pass over to Elien.
Thank you. So I want to cover a few results that we gained with working together with research institutes and universities, like mentioned by Scott and Ilias before. But before going to these results, I want to show to you how we need to think about programs and not just products or drums. So we try to build a full or complete program to put in place to get the best outcome out of it. And this means that we need to make sure we have the right products, the right protocols, that we have the people that know how to apply the products and that know what to do to avoid having problems in the field. but also, like Scott mentioned before, pest control, like Ilias mentioned before, training of people on the farm, or training of vets that come on the farm. Everyone needs to be involved in the biosecurity program to get the best outcome of it. So here's some results coming from research done. This was a research study done together with the University of Georgia in the US, related to poultry production. So here we try to cover the farm to fork, so the whole chain in the poultry production. So we start at the pullets and the breeder farms, and we try to show the impact that we can bring at the processing plant by focusing at the beginning of the chain. So what can happen if we provide proper cleaning and disinfection protocols at farm levels, and what is the result that we can see at the processing plant? So when we apply a proper cleaning and disinfection program in the farm environment at sanitary stop, and when we apply cleaning and disinfection of drinking water systems at sanitary stop, and applying drinking water disinfection during the production cycle, then we see that we can have a great impact on the reduction of salmonella at the level of the processing plant. So we could show in this study that we could reduce salmonella prevalence with 67% at the processing plant. That's quite a huge impact that we can bring by focusing at the start of the production chain, so at farm level, and by putting the right focus over there, by providing proper product solutions and programs in the field. Because if one part in the chain is not applying the proper protocols and programs, we will miss some results over there. So that's why we really want to focus with the academics and the industry on the farm to fork approach, the One Health approach, to make the best outcome out of it. The next one. So here is another result from research where we were working together with Iowa State University in the swine industry. And this is really focusing on the cleaning and disinfection of drinking water systems at sanitary stop. So when the animals are out of the farm and we need to clean and disinfect the environment and clean and disinfect the drinking water systems, what impact can this bring to the next production cycle, to the next batch of animals that comes in that environment? So this one is just looking at the cleaning and disinfection of the drinking water system, where we were applying a parasitic acid-based product to really get the removal of biofilm. And then we were following several weeks, months, during the wean to finish production cycles, what the impact is of a one-time cleaning and disinfection event. Here we saw that after only 72 hours of doing that cleaning and disinfection event at sanitary stop, we have already the regrowth of biofilm. And that regrowth comes back at original levels from before that cleaning and disinfection event. So in simple words, it only takes 3 days to get a biofilm back at the microbiological load as from before. So here, this really means we need to focus on drinking water treatment during the production cycle as well. Of course, we need to start with the cleaning and disinfection of the system, but afterwards we need to continue to focus on providing healthy and clean drinking water for our animals to get the best performance in the end. Another part of that study was focusing on the antimicrobial resistance. Can you just move back, Elias? Sorry. So it's a link to antimicrobial resistance. So we see that a lot of microorganisms inside the biofilm are showing microbial resistance as well. So in this case, in this study, we found out that 71% of the isolates was showing some resistance. And we checked on the two main antibiotics used in the swine production, being chlortetracycline and lincomycin. And from these isolates, we saw that 59% was showing resistance against the chlortetracycline and 41% against lincomycin. So also here, it's really important to remove biofilm to make sure we do not have problems afterwards during production cycles with antimicrobial resistance. Another part of the research that we did is focusing on cleaning and disinfection of the environment of the animals, so the farm, the barn environment, and cleaning and disinfection of the drinking water system at sanitary stop. So these results come from a collaboration that we did with Animal Data Analytics. This was performed on 4 commercial Spanish farms, swine farms, with a medium size, where we were checking the control group, meaning the current cleaning and disinfection protocols in place. We were following 2 of these control groups. And after that, we implemented the swine prime group or the treatment group, where we were putting our products and programs in place to clean and disinfect the barn and to clean and disinfect the drinking water system. And we could see here, so we were following the test group or the swine prime group for 6 cycles to collect enough data to get the right conclusion out of it. And here we could see that we have a huge impact on the reduction of mortality. So we did the trial in the maternity and in the nursery. As for us, that's the most important part. If we do not have a healthy start or a good start over there, for sure the results will not be there in the fattening unit neither. So here we could show a 16% reduction of mortality in the maternity period and a 14% reduction of mortality in the nursery period. And another part of the study is also showing an impact on the antibiotic reduction. You can see that in the next slide. And there we could show a reduction that so we could reduce 4.7 times the medications used in the control group compared to the swine prime group. So here we show when you implement proper cleaning and disinfection protocols at sanitary stop for the environment of the animals, but also the drinking water systems, that we can really reduce infection pressures in the environment, and linked to that, we can reduce the antibiotics or the treatments that we need during the production cycle. So 4.7 times less in the maternity phase and 1.5 times less antibiotics used in the nursery phase. And I think that's the most important message that we want to bring here. If we collaborate between academia and industry, that we can get to the perfect or the most suitable programs and solutions in the field to have the biggest impact in the whole production cycle, so from farm to fork.
So it's going back, let's say, and trying to going towards the closing the webinar, the presentation. So what's next? Indeed, it's all about strengthening the keeping and strengthening the collaboration, and going to the role of what the collaboration could be between the biosecurity chairs and CID lines. There are a lot of activities to be incorporated, and you have seen it's exciting. It's a lot of work that has been done, and it's only to move to bigger and greater extents. Why? Because now we said about farm to fork, it's really important, and also trying to highlight and incorporating a One Health approach. And this is all about keeping the role of biosecurity to combat the microbial resistance threat, as it was nicely demonstrated before by Elien, and also keeping the role of biosecurity as part of the farm to fork strategy. So we have a lot moving to new projects. We try to effectively reduce salmonella throughout the chain, and also on focusing on education activities. The trainings is to come up. The transformation of thinking into programs, not products, are well ongoing and is only going to be accelerated. And the development of formal and easy to understand biosecurity guidelines and flowcharts are already in place because of the different projects that are ongoing or about to start. So as conclusions, we have that we retain that the biosecurity is the basis in animal health management, is the key towards animal agriculture sustainability, and the chair, but most importantly, the close collaboration between industry and academia is key. Because you need to propagate and disseminate knowledge on biosecurity, validated knowledge, and we need to embrace and use the novel technologies and the nice tools that we have now to create a positive change. And of course, is also the motto of CID Lines is to work where health begins. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much to all three speakers. I think this is excellent presentation. When I learned about the chair of biosecurity in animal production of the University of Ghent, I immediately thought that this was a great example to share with our community of practice. And I think some of the questions that we received before the webinar during the registration and in the chat at the moment reflect some of these. So we have a colleague from Goa, Rahul Srivastava, who is the public-private partnership manager at Goa, who has a couple of questions. Let me start first with the question for Scott. And it says, thank you for highlighting the legislative and regulatory framework as well as new technologies. I am curious to know if you are expanding this kind of collaboration with other universities in Africa and Asia as well.
Yeah, it's a very valid question. So I admit we have a bit of a European bias here. Our main R&D facilities are based in Europe. So there is a bit of a historical bias there. That's why we've been working with the University of Ghent, with Ilias. We've built up our relationship with him over the last years. And we're using him as a way as well of getting information from other regions beyond what we're doing in Belgium. What we typically have at the moment ongoing is on specific projects. If we have local project needs in specific regions around the world, that there we will get in touch with local universities. We don't have a program in place at the moment where we're developing such an in-depth relationship like we are with the University of Ghent in other regions. But it's something I absolutely agree. You know, biosecurity, you can't have a one-size-fits-all for the whole globe. We need to make sure that we're seeing this global view on what's happening in the regions around the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott. I think I will encourage our colleagues from universities to also reach out to companies, because it's definitely an opportunity, particularly now that the funding is kind of shrinking from the public health side. So let's look at other alternatives. I'll continue with the question for Ilias, also from Rahul. Thanks for your insights. As a public university, what criteria does Ghent University use to select one company over others for partnerships? And what is your suggestion for other public universities considering similar partnerships?
Yes, so I cannot answer on behalf of the, or let's say, an institution, but what I see and what I experience is that the standards are quite strict and quite high. You need to value and prioritize the production of peer-reviewed publications. You need to prioritize that this is impartial, and it is well demonstrated in our case that we enjoy, let's say, a lot of freedom, academic and scientific freedom, to pursue all the different aspects. And I have a small, just to add that on the regulatory framework side of it, we're in a really prestigious and really, let's say, good spot in Ghent University in Belgium. We have a lot of collaborations with other universities in Asia and Africa as well, where we promote the use of biosecurity tools. We try to improve, and we are there, and it has well been demonstrated. We have a successful platform, a risk-based biosecurity assessment tool with biocheck.ugent. And going back on the suggestion to other public universities, I would say is be brave, be like outspoken in the approach as well. So and find, but still always keep the level high and don't make a lot of reductions, I would say.
Thank you very much, Ilias. Yeah, something that I realize is the professionality of the University of Ghent on how to handle these and putting as a priority the scientific rigorosity in all their studies. And I guess that's why University of Ghent has positioned themselves at a very high level for biosecurity. The next one is for Elien. Elien, well, first they thank you for your insights, for sharing your insights, and also for that opening line on thinking about program and not only products. And there is a very specific question on what microbials were being targeted in the examples that you share on the swine production line.
So the one from the Iowa State University, there it was just focusing on the chlortetracycline and the lincomycin and to see what resistance is shown there. But we did further sequencing over there as well. So we saw in that study that we find microorganisms in drinking water systems or in the biofilm in drinking water systems covering 14 different drug classes. So there, it's not only about the main antimicrobials used in the swine industry. We see much broader resistance as well. So we can share some details on that if people are interested. So they can always contact us for that. And in the other trials, there we saw a reduction of antimicrobials, and this was mainly linked to the digestive problems, respiratory problems, lameness, and meningitis. So that were the main 4 categories of infection pressures that we were following during the production cycles of these trials.
Great. Thank you very much for the clarification, Elien. I'm coming now to the questions that we received before the webinar. So during the registration, participants were able to ask for some questions. And this one, maybe I think it's target for Scott, who talk about these changes in the chemical regulations and how that can dramatically change how companies develop new products and how difficult can become. And the question is very broad, but they talk about how to look at the impact of chemicals used for biosecurity procedures on the environment and on food safety. And maybe if Scott, if you can share some insights on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the scrutiny within the BPR, the Biocidal Products Regulation, we have to prove that going forward now, what impact our products have on the environment. And also if we're working in an area where products could be produced for food, we get into the discussion of residues and potential carryover of chemicals then into the food chain afterwards. So this is a big thing. And if we look traditionally at chemicals that have been used in the past, a lot of the commodity type chemicals used can cause problems in these areas. So some of the components of formulations that are traditionally on the market and have been used for the last 40, 50 years with apparently no problem, when we look into them in detail, we actually find, yes, this could be a persistent molecule in wastewater and groundwater. This can cause problems with water plants afterwards. So we have to pay attention to actually removing these ingredients, replacing them with more sustainable versions. And if we look at the handover or the transfer of chemicals getting into food, which can go along the food chain, the idea here is to use the safest chemicals we can. So we will look at the toxicity profile of all of the ingredients in our formulations. Ingredients such as formaldehyde, you don't want to have formaldehyde getting into food afterwards because of the very high toxicity of it. So we wherever possible, we move away from ingredients like that, move to more sustainable ones. Peracids, for example, are a very good example. They will react very aggressively with bacteria or other germs to kill them, but they're going to break down quite quickly as well into ingredients which are fine for food. Peracetic acid, for example, breaks down into water, oxygen, and vinegar at the end of the day. These are the sort of approaches that we need to be looking at more to reduce any toxicity coming through the system too far.
Thank you very much, Scott. Very useful insights. I have another questions coming in, but I will take the opportunity of moderating this to ask my question, and this is to Elien, because I was very interested in the results that you presented. I've seen them before. And one that I find particularly interesting, because we usually don't measure that, is the one that you presented on the downstream benefits of applying good biosecurity at the farm level and how that can contribute to lower infections at the processing level. So maybe if you can develop a little bit more on that, and if you can share if there is any ongoing study that you are working on, and maybe looking it from the policy perspective, how can we incorporate this? Because, I mean, if it's an integrated company, the benefits will go to the company. But if it's a farm that supplies to a labor market, this becomes public goods, which are usually supposed to be subsidized to reach the optimal equilibrium, let's say, and thinking about economics. So any insight on this, any insight on what you are looking at the moment at CID LINES?
So indeed, the study that we did with Georgia University was to check what impact we can bring when we focus on the farm. Because in Global Animal Health Division in Ecolab, we really focus on the farm and everything linked to the farm. So transport is a big part of it as well, but also the employees coming on the farm. So entrance hygiene, personal hygiene are very important as well. And I know there some studies are done at the University of Ghent as well related to boot disinfection, related to what happens when people enter the farm, which type of mistakes are made. Because a simple example, washing hands. I like to use that example because it seems to be very easy. But I'm sure if we ask all participants here in the webinar to wash and disinfect hands, that we will see hundreds of different protocols, let's say. So sometimes it's really in the basics. And I think, from my perspective, I think that's what we want to show. So we should not always come with new technologies, new products, new programs. In fact, we have already good products. And if we put them at the right moment, in the right place, and people know how to use them correctly, so they are trained on how to get the best results out of it, and then we talk about the program, I think then we can have a much bigger impact than we are aware of. And that's the goal that we try to show, or that we want to share with everyone. Look, we have existing products in our portfolio, and if you put them at the right place, right concentrations, right conditions, you can get very good results with that. And if we can lower the infection pressure at the farm level as much as possible, for sure we deliver animals to the slaughterhouses with lower prevalence of Salmonella, lower prevalence of Campylobacter. We can prevent having diseases transmitted or spreading on farms. So that's our real focus there, to lower the infection pressure as much as possible and to work with prevention. So to prevent that diseases can come on our farms by taking care of transport. And that's something we want to look into in the future, where we can have an impact on transport. Because Because to be honest, I never met a truck driver that has time to properly clean and disinfect the trucks, but that's quite a high risk. So we want to check with the existing products and protocols, how can we put a realistic protocol in place for everyone to lower the infection pressure over there, to lower or to minimize risks related to transport. Same, and maybe Ilias, you can add something on that, research that was done on boot disinfection to check with existing products, existing protocols, what are we doing today and how can we improve that to get better results with things that exist already. And there we often see it's in details. It's very easy thing. Often it's very easy things, but just out of habit, we are not aware, we make a mistake, or out of habit, we don't think about the easy things. And I think that's where we really want to focus on to strengthen what we have and to show that we do not always need new products, new programs, but that the existing things are helping already quite a lot. Scott and Ilias, feel free to add something from your perspective as well.
Thank you very much, Elien. I think we're running out of time. I think we could continue talking for hours around the results that you share with us. But I would like maybe to close with one question for all three of you, kind of last take-home message. Around the question from Aminu Zakaria Abubakar from Nigeria, who is asking, what are your recommendations to effectively train farm workers on biosecurity measures? And I guess she's asking on just what you mentioned, Elien, applying the right protocols with the right products at the right time. So maybe I'll start with Ilias and then I'll move to Scott and Elien.
Yes. So the strategies, and indeed it's a good thing it's a plural, because there's not one strategy that will do the job, but you need a set of strategies, because we need to take into account cultural elements, we need to take into account financial details and logistical details about how to train them. But indeed, so the first one, the priority is to have the farm workers interested. So if you give them rigid trainings with a lot of details, and maybe if I say it, let's say a deep dive already, the chances are that the majority will panic or maybe pretend nod that they understand, and that's it, and it will be washed away. So the first thing is to make it down to earth and applicable as well, realistic. And when in form, I would say I would like to see people embracing a bit the options, so to make it tailor-made if possible, taking into account the conditions of the farm or the chain of the food chain that they are into, because as we said before, it's really important. It's not just what happens on the farm.
Yeah,
A lot of the outbreaks has to do what's happening outside the farm.
Definitely.
But yeah, I would say the one more, and I want to leave also the floor to the colleagues to bring also their perspectives, is to say that we need to make sure that the strategies to follow also include to be consistent and continuous. So not just sporadic and out of the blue and just out of necessity, let's call it like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ilias. Scott, maybe a short message because we'll need to close soon.
Yeah, echoing everything Ilias said, motivation is a huge factor. The other thing is keeping it as simple as possible. So build in factors into your training plans so that, color coding, having different size shapes of containers and things so people cannot mix up products, so that it makes it a lot easier for them to use. That would be my sort of 10 seconds answer on that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Scott. Elien.
I agree with both of them. And my main message is keep it as simple as possible and show figures. So that's what we try to do, show them and convince people that by using the right products and programs, we can give them a return on investment.
Definitely, the showing the benefits, showing the gains.
Yeah, exactly.
So with this, I just want to thank our great speakers today. It was amazing to see all those insights and see academia partnering with the private sector in such an interesting and productive way. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to all the participants today and members of the community of practice. Please continue the discussion in the discussion forum and see you next month. Goodbye.